So what I want us to do is think about this title I have here, Reimagining Black History, the Significance of the First Black President in Black History. The people I want to talk about, what have you done for me lately? It's not Obama. It's the people in our history, in American history, in Black history. So to understand the significance of the first Black president, we have to understand him in the context of Black history. So this is the point I want to get to. I often get into a lot of discussions and sometimes debates on, what's so important about Obama? He hasn't done this, he hasn't done that. And given my work as a historian and philosopher, I realized that we were probably looking at, some people I was discussing, looking at, I don't want to say the wrong things, but we were forgetting to look at the larger context. And that Obama's significance is defined, it could be understood by the history he comes out of. So we want to ask, what have certain people done for us lately, or for our society lately, to produce the kind of president we have, or we have had? Yes?
Can we just list old leaders?
List what?
List people.
Oh, we want to talk about that. That's good. That's the setup. So my first goal is, I don't know, can you read this?
Yes.
Okay, good. My first goal is to contextualize Barack Obama's 2008 election in Black history. Anybody know that word, context? Context? When you put something in context, what are you doing? Yes. Yes. Well, when you put something in context, you are enabled, you are empowered to make some summaries and some conclusions. You're getting the toolkit you need to see the big picture. All right? Here's an example of a context. We have this water here, right? We're going to use context to make this water the most important thing in the world. Is this water the most important thing in the world right now?
No.
Right? Let's say, for some reason, all the water in the world evaporated, and this is the last bottle. Everybody's still here. We have billions and billions of people here. What's going to happen if I have this bottle of water?
You're gonna die.
Yeah, right. It'll be torn to pieces, right? So something that is insignificant in one situation becomes significant in a different situation. So we want to look at context. All right, context is important. Whenever you do something, or whenever you talk about an idea, or if you get into an argument, try to find context. Okay, so what you might think is insignificant in one situation could be very significant in another situation. So what we want to do is contextualize Barack Obama in a context. That's the first goal. The second goal, this is more for administrators and teachers, is to challenge the way Black history is taught, to challenge the way classes approach Black history. And I'll talk more about that at the end. Hopefully, if parents come in, we can have a discussion on that. And the final goal is to encourage you, everyone, to appreciate the value of history and to employ. Employ means to utilize, to use its intellectual tools. Right? Thinking historically is a skill set. You just don't do it overnight. All right? You have to practice. You have to remind yourself. All right? And I'll give you examples later. We don't have much time. This is a very difficult talk for me to prepare for because I've given talks about Obama and other things. For example, I gave a talk on Obama about 2 years ago, and it was a 5-day lecture series. Each day I had an hour, and I still didn't have enough time for each topic. So yeah, this is crazy. So I'm like a kid in Toys R Us, like, oh, I'm just going to faint before I can choose anything. Here's my outline. It's going to be a little tedious. I had some debates with some friends, and this is, make sure it's cool and lobby. I got some pictures and stuff for you, but I want you to walk away with some tools that you can use for the rest of your life, okay? And you can use throughout your career as a student, as a lifelong student. And so this first part, from memories to history, is a very important toolkit that I want to share with you, all right? And I teach a lot of this in my college courses. I teach at a community college, time to time, and this is a very important distinction that we need to have. In fact, if more of us had this distinction, I probably wouldn't need to even give this talk as frequently as I do. The second part consists of a concept called the color line. Have you heard of the color line before? Okay, this is very big. This is very big. Cannot understand history, American history, in fact, without understanding the concept of the color line. And all of you, are scholars here. Your school is setting you up to go to college. You're going to learn a lot about the color line and this key concept. All right? And finally, we're going to talk about what I mean by recollecting fears, hopes, and dreams in Black history. All right? I'm going to go into more detail. I can't do everything at once, so I'm going to go piece by piece. I'm going to move quickly. And if you have questions about things that I may have went over a little too quickly, feel free to bring them up. Okay. Whenever somebody's giving a talk about something, an issue or a concept, there's usually some key things to think about, a problem or a question or something like that. There's a problem. This problem comes from a book. Oh, my competition is here. Okay, the pizza. All right, I need to put the pizza on me so you can keep going. Let me read this statement here. With Obama's historic win, it is easy to take for granted the achievement of an African American male being elected president. So, Johnny Bernard Hill is an author of this book called The First Black President. And he made this statement. I was reading this book and he made this statement that it's easy to take for granted. And I was like, really? No, people know that, being a black president should be a big deal. But what I found in many discussions, even among my friends and scholars, that apart from saying the first black president, we don't really have much more to offer. Now, it is right, it is true. To be the first black president is big. But I want to go into a little more detail, historically and sociologically. And I want you to be armed with the ability to figure out why something is important. All right, so this is sort of a case. This is a case in point. But what I'm going to do is something that all of you can do. And I implore you to do this. I'm telling you, school's going to become much easier. Because a lot of times, you need intellectual toolkits. And if you're equipped with the toolkits, you have a lot of fun learning. Okay, so let's see what this toolkit is all about. So the problem that I'm approaching is, how could people take for granted? How could people even dismiss it? How come people don't see how profound it is? How come we weren't partying every single day like Carnival? You ready to answer me? Hold it, okay? Put it in your pocket. Or in the basket. I'll come get it. Okay, so the question is, what's so special about the first black president? Mr. Kasaun. Okay, well, let me see if I can approach that. First things first, part one. I'm going to zoom through. Mr. Jackson, please give me time breakdowns, like how much time I have before 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Like
totally fine. Yeah. We have a couple of you for parents that we need to about 6:30, so in about 10 minutes, I'm going to pull some of you out.
Oh man. Okay. Keep me posted, all right? Okay. Way before 5 minutes, though. Okay. Okay, great. So part one, rethinking memory and history. What's the difference? Man, I ran outside my house. I left my keys. Forgot something. Right? So memory involves what you can retain in your mind, things that you've experienced, or responsibilities, or chores that you want to do. Okay, it's recollections and stuff. But now I want to talk about the different kinds of memory when it comes to culture and society and politics. Okay. All of you have different memories. There may be some people that you know that others don't know. It's facts, right? So let's say I have a best friend or a long lost family member who just disappeared, and the family thinks this person just is gone. We don't know what happened. And I'm giving this talk, and that person is so important to me that if I were to see them walk past, or if I was to think that they walk past, I would just run out of this talk and say, wait a minute, are you Uncle Ralphie? Right? And it was like, yeah, I'm not Uncle Ralphie, I'm a teacher here in Democracy Prep. Right? That's my individual memory, and my experience with that person, my interaction with that person makes that person important to me. But then you can have a group memory where, for example, all of you know Mr. Jackson. And in 5 years from now, you see Mr. Jackson on a basketball court like, what LeBron? You'll be like, oh, snap. Next thing you know, Mr. LeBron's in the NBA, slamming it and dunking it on people. Right? Now, some people might go, oh, that's cool, he's another person in the NBA. But you're like, you don't understand. Mr. Jackson was our teacher in Democracy Prep. We didn't even know he could do that. right? So that's a group memory. And then we have different groups who may not share that memory, obviously. And then we have collective memory. So things are important to us based on our individual experiences and also our collective experiences. And then you may have things that happen that everybody may witness, our collective memories. And this is how issues in history and politics become more and more important. Okay, if you're in a town that needs more water, okay, like the whole Flint issue, then that's going to be your major concern. But if you're in a town that has other issues perhaps maybe the roads are all messed up and you have fancy cars and you don't want your cars getting messed up, you're going to vote for somebody who says, I promise to make sure your roads are smoother than marble. That's going to be your concern, whereas another town is concerned about clean water or issues with law enforcement, okay? And so there's issues that involve all of us. However, when it comes, again, to history and politics, this still has its limitations. Because there are some things that happen in our society that we haven't experienced. Let me give you one. All of us have a collective memory of experiencing President Barack Obama. I'm sure many of you heard about what happened to Michael Brown, all right? Or let's say Eric Garner, or the two guys who were recently arrested, okay? Or we know that Kendrick Lamar recently got in a huge war, Pulitzer Prize, okay? And we know about, so a lot of bad things and good things. Now, I've experienced a lot of bad things with racism, but when my mom told me one day, a few years back, that she was telling me about her first job. She said, oh yeah, my first job, I was working in the colored section and when I heard that, it was like everything else was like womp, 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 blah, blah, blah. And when she told me she worked in the colored section at a Greyhound bus station, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Now, I know about institutional racism. I know about the new Jim Crow, as Michelle Alexander talks about, but I don't know about the color section. I only saw pictures of that. And so I realized that some things in our history, give me 1 second, may not be a part of our memory. And that's why history is important, because it expands our history, so that our memories, so that we can share in the experiences that people in our families, members of our communities have gone through, and why things are the way they are, even though we haven't experienced them. And so this gets into what history is. And so, let me go here to history. I want to skip all these fine, nice, interesting points. But history is the widest possible definition of memory. It can incorporate experiences that go beyond your time and place. Okay, and that's why it's important. Now, we're going to get to Black history. And while I picked this on purpose because it says celebration of Black history, but we're going to do a little bit more than celebrate. All right? I want us to treat Black history as if it's a site where we're going to dig and excavate and find valuable information. Okay, and that's what we're going to do right now, and that takes us to part 2. Part 2 is the color line. The color line is a very important concept. This is a concept you'll probably begin to discuss in high school, and it's an issue you should, by college, be fully aware of. The color line, as we understand it, was first brought up by one of the major intellectuals and social activists of our time in America, and that is W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay? He is a giant in our history. He lived in the late 19th century and early 20th century. He's one of the co-founders of the NAACP. Good. Okay. He was a part of countless organizations. And what we're going to talk about very briefly is the color line. And let me just read this here. He says the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. The relation of the darker to the lighter races of men in Asia and Africa, in America and the islands of the sea. In short, he was saying what we have going on here that's messing up society is the fact that there's a hierarchy, a racial hierarchy, based on the color of your skin. And that's going to be a huge problem. It is a huge problem. And I don't need to recount exactly all of the manifestations of that problem. But I do want to share a little bit about the history of the color line. That color line wasn't born overnight. And it has its roots in the discovery of the New World, the establishment of colonies, and the need for labor to exploit for wealth. And Africans were exploited for that wealth, for that labor, to create wealth. And over time, to secure that people reinforced this business model, we have to get people to think that this is the way it is, beyond what is real. So that means we have an issue. This issue is so insidious that for a long time, even if you were a free black, because the reinforcement of these ideas was so deep in society, people would still think you were not worthy of your freedom and you're supposed to have, you're supposed to be, in debt to somebody as a slave. Okay, so this created a number of things, and I don't have enough time to go into this, but it created a concept called white supremacy, which is real. This is very important to talk about, especially in the context of Barack Obama and black history. This is so important for schools to talk about that there are even attempts by other schools, public schools, okay, sponsored by the U.S. government. We have certain schools in Texas, I don't know if you read this, in 2015, a school had a passage in a textbook, in a history textbook, that said, Africans migrated to the New World for agricultural employment. Like, we just jumped on the ship and said, put these chains on, I'm going to work. Okay? That's just the way it was put out there. You got to be real. And that's a revision of history, which will desensitize other people from the problems that we're going through. So, white supremacy was established over time, and these are some steps that obviously I can't get into. But it's an ideological and economic and political construct that basically says the lighter you are, if you're white, you're on top of the world, and you're naturally superior. It's sad to have to say this, but this is real. And to make my case, all right, I'll skip over this definition, the belief that white people are superior. Actually, I'm a little bit more dramatic than this definition. This is the textbook definition. But I gave this reading in my classes, in my college classes. There's been an effort to really show slavery for what it is and for what it was. And one of the ways to do that, without trying to say, I'm not trying to make you all part of the Black Panther movement or something like that. A lot of people get offensive. And as a historian, as a professional in this field, I use primary sources. So here's a primary source document. I have a document. It's basically commentary by a former senator in the 1800s of South Carolina, and also a governor. And here's what he has to say. This is an example of a commonly held belief. This is important. No human institution, in my opinion, is more manifestly consistent with the will of God than domestic slavery. And no one of his ordinances is written in more legible characters than that which consigns the African race to this condition as more conducive to their own happiness than any other of which they are susceptible. Let me fast forward. Whether we consult sacred scriptures or the light of nature and reason, we shall find these truths as abundantly apparent as if written with a sunbeam in the heavens. Translation. Right? I give this to my students. Basically, this guy is saying slavery was ordained by whoever his God was. Not only that, you can look at nature and you can use reason to see and get the evidence of this. What's important, this was a commonly held belief of our country. And these are the kind of facts that I really wasn't taught until much, much later, and and a lot of which I had to take the initiative to learn. And one of the people that encouraged me to learn this was actually Martin Luther King Jr. when I was listening to some of his speeches, because I wanted to know, like, why is he, like, this guy was 39 years old, and you hear him talk, I mean, he just seems like he was like 70 or 80 years old, so wise, and he has so much conviction. And I remember hearing a talk one day, not only did I have a dream speech, but he gave a talk in a local church, and he got a little bit more real about the things that we need to know about our society, and about things that the larger American society has to be a little bit more explicit about. The same way when you and your friend may have a conflict, you're like, listen, let's keep it real. This is what happened. My bad. Much love. You know what? We're going to keep it moving. If we can't have that talk about that, about the beef we've had in our society, how can we be real homies? This is why I want to bring this up. And also, let me keep it moving. So the next final context, just to make the case. After the Civil War, we know about the Civil War, right? From 1861, 1865, right? We got 13th Amendment here. African Americans are freed, no more slavery. The president after Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Johnson, the 17th president, he said, and this was a response to the apparent upward mobility and improved possibilities for African Americans. And he said this on behalf of his constituency. This is a country for white men, and by God, as long as I am president, it shall be a government for white men. This is not to say that every white person agreed with him, but this is to remind you, in order for you to fully appreciate the context of Barack Obama and Black history, that this was one of the main sentiments, one of the major feelings about race relations in the United States. And so when we begin to think about, wow, what it means for Obama to be a president, not just in our day, but in light of this history of expressed beliefs, I don't know about you, but for me, it begins to trigger something. That event was not supposed to happen. It was not a part of the plan. And thanks to many people, white, black, across the whole rainbow of race, contributed to that. And we'll move forward. So this gets to part 3. I just gave you 2 examples. You can do a whole class on these examples. But these are kind of facts that you would never really get. And I implore you to talk about them and learn them. Not to be angry, but to have clarity and understanding of where we are and how much work we have. So part 3. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is that at the same time, meanwhile, many African Americans are like, nah. We're gonna push for freedom. We're gonna push for equality. We're gonna push for love. At some points in time, everybody familiar with Harriet Tubman? Okay, a former slave. She was a freedom fighter, abolitionist, and you know what she's kind of known for, right? One of her most famous. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna get somebody that I always think of you.
2 things.
Yeah.
Underground Railroad.
Yes.
And I think it was an accident when she got hit by the
Okay, let's stick with the Underground Railroad. Very good. Because I have a picture of the Underground Railroad. We have, she was a G in her day. Somebody who's going to go back to the heart of slavery, to the heartlands of slavery, and say, y'all ready to go? And this is to give you an example of how far people had to travel. And you can't even disguise yourself, because all you have to do is just be black and people will automatically be suspicious of you. And so this is how far people had to travel to get to slavery, from these states here, up here, and beyond. And maybe if you're lucky, you can get down to the Caribbean, depending on the year. But I want to go back to Harriet Tubman, because she says something that I want you to hold on to for the rest of this lecture. This is the last part. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. When I've been doing my work on Obama and trying to understand, how he's connected to the black experience, I started reading certain words, started catching up, and I didn't realize certain words were just flooded, just sprinkled all over the chronicles of intellectual blacks or even freedom fighters or whoever you are. The word dream is one. Right? You know dream from like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. But he wasn't the only person using this word dream. She had a dream for something great to happen in the world, even though she was in a condition of servitude or trying to escape servitude. Another person who comes up, which is very important. Anybody familiar with Marcus Garvey? Okay, so way after 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, people are thinking like Booker T. Washington, we good. But we still weren't good. African Americans still weren't good. And Marcus Garvey got better. Marcus Garvey, okay, when he came to America around 1916, he's looking and seeing Jim Crow at work. Okay, Jim Crow's the whole subordination of African Americans, even though you're free, you're second-class citizenship, separate but equal, all that stuff, right? And between 1914 and 1918, this is interesting, we have World War I. And what he witnessed was African American soldiers, Hispanic soldiers, soldiers of color coming back to the country proud, saying, yeah, we fought for democracy. And many of them were lynched and beaten. And he lost a little of his hope for equality in this world. And this is important. I found this to be very important. I found this statement here, to be in conversation with President Barack Obama. He says so for us to encourage the idea that one day Negroes will rise to the highest in the administration of this white government is only encouraging a vain hope. Now what he means by this, the idea that one day Negroes will rise to the highest in the administration. What's the highest seat in the administration of the government? The president. It's the highest office. So he was like, it's not possible. In his day, it was true. It wasn't possible. This is context. Some people may read him here as being defeatist. No, he wasn't defeatist. This guy, he was gangster. Okay, he basically was trying to create a whole new country, a whole new league of politics for people of color around the world, particularly in the continent of Africa. And so he felt that if we can't do it here, then we need to set up somewhere else. He read very deeply in history and in politics, and he says, all right, I see some of the things that democracy can do, and maybe we can incorporate that. So he didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but he surely felt that it wasn't going to be able to happen here. This is important, the whole notion of a vain hope. Where else have you heard this word hope? Perhaps most recently, related to this talk. Who used the word hope? The audacity of... Who said that? The audacity of hope. Yes. Good. So I'm going to come back to it. All right. Martin Luther King Jr., he's known for civil rights movement, Southern... yes. Oh, you were giving me a... Oh, okay. So, yeah, so he's known for a lot of civil rights issues. And what I want to focus on is his dream. We talked about the dream speech. That was the speech we talked about. It wasn't the Langston Hughes. I was here for the dream speech. Somebody said Langston Hughes. And remember we talked about the dream speech? And he used the word dream so many times. And what was his dream about? Anybody remember? Yes.
His dream was that one day African Americans will be able to, African Americans and whites will be able to communicate together and be able to
Yes.
have a simple way of confronting each other without necessarily having a feeling of superiority.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. And you were going to say something too, right? Yeah. What you going to say? Okay. Yes. What I noticed, I just picked a few people. Many people had this dream. Many of them were in conversation with each other, although they didn't live at the same time. They all were talking about dreams and hope. But not just like the dreams where you have $1 in dreams. We're talking about people who put their lives on the line. Okay, this man was shot down. He was killed. His life was threatened. Marcus Garvey was imprisoned and kicked out of the country. Okay, and Harriet Tubman was hunted down like a dog. Well, they were hunting her down. Okay, so when we talk about dreaming and hope, we're not just talking about this wishful thinking. We're talking about a determination. So I'm going to fast forward now. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hear the audio. This is precious. I wish I had so much more time. This has to be a course on this. So Sammy Davis Jr., I'm going to send the link.
Is there a song in it?
No, it's not a song. It's a quick talk he gives for about 3 minutes. And so basically, let me just summarize the talk. This is 1966. And this is Sammy Davis Jr. talking to his audience in Overton, Florida. He's about to give a performance. The crowd was sad and despondent because right after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, people were still being lynched. Some people were being stoned in retaliation. And people were like, we got this amazing achievement that King was fighting for. But look at what's happening. Even though the law changed, look at what's still going on. Is it worth it? And so he comes to his crew and says, you know, he didn't want to perform first. He says, let me tell you something. Don't let nobody put you down. He says, and I'm going to paraphrase it in my mother's tongue. I'm from the hood a little bit. He says, listen, don't let nobody front on you, because what happened has changed possibilities for us. Okay? It changed possibilities for us. In fact, he did say this. There could be some young boy in here, some young kid in here, about 5 years old, who's able in 50 years to run for president. Now, a friend of mine who knows I like hearing things from the past, you know, I like to collect all these things and do my research, didn't understand how significant this was. She was just thinking, oh, this is something that Kasaun would like. But when Sammy Davis Jr. said this in 1966, everything popped up because Obama was born in what year? 19, what?
That's 1909.
Okay, that's a little far. But always give an answer. No, always give an answer. Because you actually remember the right answer better. Close. 1961. 1961. And by the way, sidebar. I implore you to do this. If you can get the courage to just ask questions even if you're not sure, and have thick skin to, like, if you feel embarrassed or not, you'll actually become a really good learner. Okay? But anyway, 1961. 1966 minus 1961 is how many years? 5 years. Sammy Davis Jr. Check it. Sammy Davis Jr. said there could be some kid in 5 years who could run for president now. In 50 years. He understood the possibility, but he had no idea that there was this kid in Hawaii who was exactly 5 years who did in fact become president within that time frame. Wow. This what made me want to start doing these talks, because, and I'm jumping the gun, so let me keep it moving.
Whoa.
So that's amazing, right?
Revelation.
Okay, so I gotta fast forward, time's about up. So let me bring out Shirley Chisholm. Anybody familiar with Shirley Chisholm?
Yeah.
Okay. So Shirley Chisholm, she ran for president way before Jesse Jackson. She doesn't get her props as being the early, gladiators to run for president. She made that possible, and she made a very important statement that sums up a lot of what I'm trying to show. She said, successful blacks who are proud of their own accomplishments should not disregard the fact that despite their own efforts, they owe most of their success to the momentum of their group, to actions taken before they came of age. And this gets to the heart of the success of any one of us, not just within a particular ethnic community, but at large. And so this aligns with what Sammy Davis Jr. was talking about. That because of your actions, somebody else. And so the question about Obama's significance in black history, when I played Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? That question is for our ancestors, those who came before us. You should know what they have done for you lately. And that is how we can seek significance in everything. Being here in school, getting opportunities to go to college. There was one African American in South Carolina back in the day, I can't keep giving anecdotes, which is an amazing one. He was so bold in the 60s, like, I don't care, I'm going to school because I'm smart. He was brilliant. And they was like, it's just a segregated state. And they thought it was so funny that this guy had the audacity to come in here. Instead of arresting him and beating him down, it was so funny to the white community that they put him in a psychiatric ward because of his audacity to say, I want to go to college. There's like, he is crazy. Don't he know where he is? Right? So, efforts have been made to change that. Efforts have been made to change that, and it's up to us to be aware of it. And I'm gonna bring on something Mr. Jackson has said. Mr. Jackson called to my attention that, I don't know if you knew it, did you share with your class, that as late as the 1960s, there were still people enslaved. This is how important it is to know. Because and this is the article, and I'm sure you'll share with the class, they didn't know that, hey, the law changed. Not only that, I mean, I don't have time to even elaborate on that, but this is how important it is to know your history, and that was literally to know the facts of your day and age. I'm almost there with questions. I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to pass this. The people who are in line politically that really paved the way, there's many of them. I'm going to show two, and I'm going to get to all the questions. Harold Washington was the first mayor of Chicago. Obama was in New York at the time. It was 1983. He just came out of Columbia University. And when that happened, he was hyped. Many African Americans was hyped. The reason why he was hyped was because it was rare for a black person to win in an area where there was a majority white people. So that showed some progress in a sense. Like, how can a black person navigate? And afterwards, 1984, Reverend Jesse Jackson says, 1 year later, I'm going to run. He ran actually in 1988 as well. And these created sort of the pathway for a quarterback who caught the ball, who has the ball, who's going to run through the opening that his guards are creating for him. And I'm almost done. And so finally, in short, I'm always rushing. I said I have enough not to rush, but I haven't quite enough. What I wanted to do was recollect the fears and hopes and dreams that helped make us have a little more understanding of how profound and how deep the sacrifice, the collective sacrifice that was made for Obama to become president. But more importantly, not just for him to become president, but for us to be who we are and do what we potentially can. And as Sammy Davis Jr. said, and I forgot to say, he says the worst thing that we can do is not take advantage of these openings and possibilities that were created for us. The worst thing to do is not take advantage of them. Right? And it doesn't mean making $1 million. It just means being the best you can be. Okay. And finally, I'll get to this final clip here, slide. And we have President Barack Obama. Did anybody get a copy of this poem, Langston Hughes poem? So the plan was that has to read this. So I don't know if Mr. Jackson has it. But this was amazing. I found this picture. So Langston Hughes wrote a poem, which I think sums up everything. He says, I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen. When company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. And I found it so poetic to have this picture of the President of the United States, African-American President of the United States, eating at the dinner table in the highest administration of his government. So I'm going to stop here, and thank you very much for your patience. And I think we have time for open discussion, so let's do it. So let's stop this. Questions? Let's start in the back, and then maybe move around. Tell me your name. I'll go from Elijah? Malaj. I get things messed up, but I keep trying hard. So I ask you your name twice, and you start reading it, right?
Alright. Are you saying like, well, you know that people have to feel, the black people have to feel that people still want to be space?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Why?
Because some people, well, one reason is that people get very comfortable in the way things are. And sometimes people's identity are dependent on a certain status. Right? And so there's a nice saying that I learned a while back that says, I have to paraphrase it, but basically comfortable in your privilege that equality becomes a threat. It's like you get comfortable in having it all just to give somebody their share becomes something you don't want to do. It's just feel, anxious and anxiety about that.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Number one, when there was a comment on passion that I feel
There was a what?
they feel
No, yeah. This is right.
because there was a line in one passion.
I think Jesse Jackson.
Oh, Jesse Jackson? All right, cool.
I went, no, who was that?
Jesse Jackson?
Oh.
He's alive today, too.
Well, I thought
Yeah. That was 1988.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I thought that was Will Smith. Like,
Oh, really? Okay. Good.
my second question was like,
Look. Oh, your second question. Yes.
how come when you like talking about this now, like your basic discussions, how come we don't bring up on solutions?
Well, because I'm trying to stay focused on, as much as possible, on the direct lineage to two things. One, to Obama, but also there's certain, as you know, if you can remember, I got certain quotations that have certain words like dream and hope, and I wanted to show that dialogue. But there are many others I couldn't mention. I mean, countless people. But then I would mention everybody and not even get reinforce a certain point. But thanks for the question. Yes.
What's so wrong with us?
What's so wrong about what?
Our skin color, blackness.
There's nothing wrong. Black is the color of all things combined, one dramaturg said. However, that's not, the blackness is not the issue. It was just something used to reinforce a group of people's belief system. It could be any difference, right? And it happened to be skin color, right? And that's unfortunate, okay? But there's nothing wrong, okay? Yes. Oh, okay. Well, let me just move around and then we'll open it up. Yes.
All right. I know you talked about Janet Jackson and Cardi B earlier.
Yeah.
But are there any artists that you listen to that kind of embody, whether it's Marcus Garvey or Sugar Chisholm, some of the things that you were talking about? Are there any musical artists that you listen to that kind of remind you of the folks that have laid this groundwork and framework, historical?
Like in our day now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
in the past?
Modern day.
Oh, yeah. Well, like Marvin Gaye, for example, he wrote not only love songs, but he wrote songs that reflected on society. Stevie Wonder as well. Curtis Mayfield's another. Michael Jackson, right? He wrote songs that depicted society and the ills of our society, and tried to use entertainment to be a moderator to talk about these serious issues and sort of spread it around the world, and Jay-Z's actually really talking more explicitly in a way that we can see as dealing with these issues. Beyonce as well with her Lemonade video, I think. Nas, Tupac, right, in his own way. And recently, Snoop Dogg did a sort of a gospel talk. So in different ways, many artists, hip hop artists across the board, and gospel artists are trying to take on this issue. Kendrick Lamar in his way, and Chance the Rapper. Yeah, so people are doing it.
So guys, we have time for
Yes.
about 2 more questions. Some of your parents are starting to arrive, but 2 more questions.
Okay, yes.
Well, it was kind of to like comments on the question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the skin color that necessarily is a big problem. I think it's the underestimation of those skin colors. So it's like, because everybody tends to underestimate black people. So like if you see a white person going to college and you see a black person, if you see a white person and a black person on the way to college, which one would you think would get accepted to the college? Like that's like, it's kind of like they underestimate. It's not, nobody's necessarily saying that the skin color is bad. It's black is beautiful, as everybody said. It's just that people like underestimate kind of necessarily what blacks can do and what necessarily we have tried to like, what blacks have necessarily tried to show and prove and say like, hey, you can do this and I can do this too. But people still believe that as they
That's good response. And to add on to that too, for the sake of historical purposes, many people, I would have to say, many people did believe that the skin color was, like I gave a quote here of a senator, a governor, who felt that you could find the evidence of this in the Bible, in nature, and also via reason. To your point, some people didn't buy that. They were just greedy and used skin color as an excuse to maintain the status quo, to maintain economic wealth, chattel slavery, and that's what we were dealing with here. But here's one thing I want to make sure I say. One of the concept of race got developed in this way. You have people who had a certain advantage over others who happened to share a skin color. And over time, people began to reinforce that relationship of a person over another person. And they use many different adjectives to describe this process. Master, ruler, or smarter and dumber, more cultured, more civilized, and uncivilized. And all of those adjectives began to define a particular label. Two labels, whiteness and blackness. And that obviously hasn't been shared by everybody in this country, but we have to keep that in mind. So that's part of how racism and white supremacy developed. So it didn't develop only because people just said, to your point, oh, they're black and so they're naturally just worse. There was a lot of situations that helped to encourage that belief system. So you have people now who believe in whiteness but don't even know how it even got started. And Martin Luther King Jr. actually said that. He said, don't buy the fact that there's something naturally wrong with the skin color. And don't buy the fact that every white person just necessarily believe that. It has a lot to do with greed and other issues. And some people use that as a psychological crutch to feel good about what they're doing. So it gets really deep and entangled. I don't know how our time is, but I can go all day till they close the school down. But yeah.
He had asked about slavery, and like you said that some places didn't know what the laws were. Could it be that they did know what the laws were because they started sharecropping after that? So
Yeah.
Could it be that they did know what the laws were, but they were being complacent about necessarily obeying the laws?
I don't think it's about complacency. I think that over time, when you are oppressed and you are threatened, that